Hello friendos and randos, welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about the OP04 Katakuri deck profile and how you can upgrade it coming from OP03. This is sort of a continuation from my OP03 deck profile, so if you need any more in-depth reasoning for the choices for cards, make sure to check that out as well, and enjoy the video. So in terms of, there are a few units that don't really have any changes or replacements moving into O4. So things like Cracker as well as Pudding, Stroizen, Parasparrow, Thunderbolt, there's no real upgrades or anything. And similarly for 10 cost Big Mom as well as the 8 cost Katakuri, no real changes need to be made on this front either. But there are a few places where there are upgrades in the deck, and especially in this area, the 2k counters as well as the vanillas, there are a few really good upgrades. So let me cover them real quick. So for OP04, I think the first thing you do with any yellow deck is immediately switch out the 2k counter cards. So first off, we have 3 cost Charlotte Amanda. Effect is activate minion once per turn. You may discard a trigger type card in order to rest a 2 cost or lower unit. So this card is actually the MVP when you're playing against Law, Red-Green Law, which is one of your worst matchups, because it allows you to delay their board building as well as leader effect until you can drop consecutive 10 cost Big Mums. And she also doesn't need to rest herself in order to use the effect, so you can use it every turn, and if they don't draw V-Stars or Robins, they won't have an answer to her. So this instantly replaces the Charlotte Pudding 2k counter like that. It is also searchable off of the Parasparrow, but now it gains the added benefit of being able to be searched off of Pudding. Because previously, the 1 cost Pudding wouldn't be able to search the 2 cost Pudding since they share the name Charlotte Pudding. But now, Amanda is searchable off of both the Pudding as well as the Parasparrow. The next 2k counter you should replace is definitely Beige. His effect is, on trigger, you may choose up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters, and for this turn, they may not attack. So this is really strong, of course. It's 2k counter as well, so definitely no downside to including it at all. The only negative portion is that it isn't searchable off of either the Pudding or the Parasparrow, but either way you are hoping that this is in your life cards anyway. So this instantly replaces the Sanji as well. And then in terms of overall searchability, you still have 8 searchable 2k counters in the Stroizen as well as the Amanda. So previously you had 8 searchable from either card. So Parasparrow could search the Pudding and the Stroizen, and Pudding could search the Sanji and the Stroizen. And now it's just simplified. So both of your searches can take Amanda and Stroizen and not Beige. So this is the replacement for Sanji here. In O4, the 6 cost Vanilla's introduction actually makes it better to run that instead over the 4 cost Vanillas. So you're able to run the new 6 cost Parasparrow Vanilla. 6 cost 8k power is a very, very strong stat line, and it's very tough to beat over. Many Katakuri lists are running this in order to also have a better Whitebeard matchup, since that is one of the worst matchups for Katakuri in OP03. Having this buff to them is very, very significant. Notably, not every list is running 4 of these. You can also, of course, cut to 3 copies instead. But I won't be discussing exact ratios here. I think at the end of the day, you should probably be testing instead of listening to me. I haven't been playing a lot of yellow either, so I'm not the expert on this front. But of course, I'm able to tell you the average list, what they look like, as well as what kind of cards they usually include. Next, for the 5 cost Vanilla, there is a straight upgrade in the 5 cost Randolph. So, of course, Yamato being a Wano Country type card isn't searchable with either Pudding or Parasparrow, but Randolph is a Big Mom Pirates type card, so it is searchable off of both of those. So it is a very easy 1-to-1 swap, since they are both vanilla cards. Next, we have the new 4 cost Sanji blocker. Sanji, of course, is a very strong blocker as well. 4 cost 5k power. On trigger, discard 1 card in order to play him. So there is a cost associated to playing him, unlike the Charlotte Brûlée, which you can just play down for no cost. But of course, because this has a 5k power body, having a cost is to be expected. On top of that, because the 5k body is tougher to remove, for example, if your opponent has a 9 cost Newgate on board, they can't just attach 2 to remove it like with Brûlée. They have to use an Otama or any other form of power reduction to get rid of it. Notably, some decks were also running the 3 cost Pound blocker, which is on KO, return up to one of your opponent's cost 3 or lower characters to their life. This card was an interesting tech, I think, into decks like Law as well as Zoro or Rebecca, where you're wanting to not attack phase too much first and then stall out, deny them resources. And it also helped you get rid of Paraspero in the mirror, sending it to bottom life, for example, and then getting rid of it later with a 10 cost Big Mom or something like that. And not only that, it also synergized well with this card, the 9 cost Yamato. 9 cost Yamato's effect is, on play, you may KO up to one character with a cost equal to the total number of cards in your life and your opponent's life. So for example, if I had 3 life and my opponent had 3 life, Yamato would KO a 6 cost on play. And after that, if you have 1 life or less, you may also add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So it is a heal essentially for 9 Don. Very good as well, even if you aren't able to KO too big of a unit, being able to remove a small blocker, for example, is very good in yellow as well, because they don't have any other real forms of removal except Thunderbolt as well as the Amanda and Streisand. So it's a very nice buff to yellow to have this option. So moving into O4, maybe a list will look something like this. On top of that, depending on when this promo card comes out, which is the 4 cost Zoro, that will also probably make its way into yellow list as well. The promo Zoro's effect is, on trigger, KO up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or lower characters. So it's essentially additional copies of Thunderbolt for your deck. Here's an example from the recent Tokyo Championships, who is running both 4 copies of Thunderbolt as well as 4 copies of the Zoro promo. Notably, this list isn't running any copies of the 8 cost Katakuri, which is interesting. They're actually running 4 copies of the 7 cost Mum, which is an interesting meta read as well. So these are just some of the options for cards that you have in OP04. Of course, you can always run the 4 cost vanilla again, or you can cut the ratios of certain cards like Cracker or Paraspero. But yeah, this is my guide to building yellow decks as well as sample deck profile. And moving forward, of course, into OP05, I think is a very straightforward upgrade path. I think you just replace all of the 5 cost vanillas with the new Gedatsu card. That card is really powerful as well. On curve, you can KO almost any character if you play correctly. So for example, if you're going first, your opponent plays a 4 cost on turn 2, you're able to KO it immediately with the Gedatsu. Even if your opponent is a 4 life leader, you can elect to not swing at them on the 3 down turn. And even against Whitebeard, on the 4 down turn, they will only have been able to take 2 of their life cards from the top of their life pile through their leader effect. So Gedatsu can still KO a 4 cost vanilla on curve, which is really strong. On top of that, he doesn't have any additional costs associated to the KO, and he also has 1k counter, so I think moving into O5 is definitely the strongest card that they have printed and the biggest buff to an existing deck. One more thing. I forgot to mention the differences when building a Yamato deck. Honestly, the rest of the cards in the ST09 aren't actually very powerful, in my opinion. So the main change would actually just be switching the 10 cost Linlin to 7 cost Linlins and then calling it a day. In OP04, you will be able to switch them to the 9 cost Yamato instead. I think this card has a very good synergy with Yamato Leader. And the strategy would probably be to starve your opponent of life cards and then remove their board using the 9 cost Yamato. And yeah, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching until the end if you've stayed until this point. I really appreciate all your support as always, and I'm really looking forward to keep making more content for all of you. Once again, thank you friendos and randos. Peace out.